In the previous video, we began the process of making the bump map for our monster. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and continue making the bump map and then start to move on to the specular map of our monster. Okay, so going back to Photoshop, in the previous video, we began the process of removing some of the bump for this channel in the side of the monster's head. So that way when the bump map is applied, this area will still remain smooth. Okay, we've got a few other areas that we need to do the same thing with. For example, this darker area of the monster's face, which is this area right here. I really don't want the bump to show up very much in this area. Okay, so in Photoshop, let's go ahead and keep this wrinkle layer selected within the bump layer set. Okay, and the layer that I was talking about, this area right here in Maya, is this dark blotches layer. Okay, so if I control click on that, you can see how it makes the selection for us. Okay, so with that selection made and this wrinkle layer active, let me go ahead and just turn on this UV snapshot, turn that off so you can see a little better what's happening. Let's go ahead and just hit the backspace key on our keyboard, and basically that's just going to remove the bump from this area. So again, this area will remain quite a bit smoother whenever the bump is applied. Okay, looking at this, another area that I want to have a little bit of bump map is around these lip creases. Okay, so what we can do, let's go back to Photoshop and let's find this lip creases layer. Okay, let's duplicate it and take the duplicate and move it up into this bump layer set. Okay, so if I take a look, you can see here's the lip creases. The problem is though right now they're white, which means when this bump map is applied, these little lines will be raised out. I actually want those lines to be pushed in. So what we can do is just inverse that. Okay, so now they're black. In other words, now these lines will be pushed in, which is really what we want. Okay, we've got some other areas that we can start to add some more bump map to. These claws, for example. Let's go ahead and duplicate these claws. Move them up. Okay, for these claws, you can see they've actually still got some color to them, which you may want, you may not. If you wanted to be able to remove this color, what you could do is simply select this layer and let's go to adjustments and let's desaturate this. In other words, that'll remove all the color from this layer. Okay. Now these darker lines, that means they're going to be pushed in on the claw, and that's what we want, so that's okay. And I believe that will probably, that should probably take care of it for the most part, for the bump map. Okay, so what we can do now is before we load this back up into Maya, we'll have to make sure that we take this wrinkle layer. Okay, let's go ahead and turn our bump layer set off. With this wrinkle layer, if you recall earlier, we duplicated this. Let's go ahead and set this back to an overlay mode. Okay, so now that makes this wrinkle a little bit softer. And again, if we want to take a look at this in Maya, we'll have to make sure that since this layer is using a blend mode, that it's merged with this skin base. Okay, so let's merge these. Okay, we'll give that just a second to think about this. Okay, now let's go ahead and save that. Okay, give it just a second. And once this is saved, now we can take a look at what we've got within Maya. Okay, so I'll reload my textures. Okay, we'll give it just a second to update this. Okay, and now let's take a render at what we've got, because we need to actually be able to render this to see what the bump maps look like. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for just a moment and render this. Okay, and our render will come back looking something like this. Now you can tell right away that our bump map's set way too high. But you can also see where this bump map, in the areas that we've removed all this bumpiness, you can see how some of our areas are still remaining relatively smooth. Okay, so let's take this bump map and let's definitely tone this down. Okay, let's go ahead and go to a split hypershade perspective view. Okay, what we could do is if you were to take a look at our monster body material and take a look at the bump node. Let's go ahead and select that, hit Control A to open up the attribute editor. Let's take this bump depth and let's lower it quite a ways. Let's say something like 0.05. Okay, with that lowered, let's now take a look at what we get. Okay, now you can see our bump is much more manageable. It's much more realistic. You can see now we've still got a few areas of stretching that are occurring, but we can fix those probably in our UV texture editor. But for the most part, this is starting to really come together now. So in the next video, we'll go ahead and start to add the specular maps for this monster, and then we'll also start to get started on the horns of our creature.